Have the headset. I do not need to have my headset on because there won't be any sound on my end. Come on, Twitch. There we are. All right. Okay. I haven't had any coffee, so we're gonna be a little brain dead today. But let's be brain dead on live stream. Why not? Streaming, game dev, doing Godot, UI stuff, maybe. So there's a lot of pieces that we need to get this little game going, some of which are art assets and some of which are program stuff. And I have a feeling that we're going to lose a lot of viewers. Not that I have any viewers, but we're going to be doing mostly programming stuff for a while, and it's not the cutest thing to look at, really. So but while you were gone, I put together this just to see if it was possible. I don't believe that there is a built-in Slice 9. I didn't really look very hard, but I didn't see a Slice 9 option. Yeah, there's no Slice 9 in here, which is really surprising because a 9 slice is absolutely standard. It is something that every game engine supports. Except for not, apparently, because this game engine doesn't support it. Every other game engine on the planet supports it. But basically, a 9 slice is when you draw one picture and you cut it up so that you have a resizable box with the edges that are the specific size and everything else stretches properly. And you can choose whether it's tiling or stretching or both or whatever. But this here is a much more basic setup. It's simply 4 identical images pasted to the edges of this rectangle. And I was just doing it to see if I could. It's not particularly a final visual of any sort. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting together the assets we need. And by that I mean the programming side assets for understanding what a colony is, what facilities are, what paths are. I've got the game all planned out. You know how it is. We'll see whether or not that actually ends up working out. But we're going to be sticking mostly to the 2D interface and trying to figure out ways to make it pop. I don't really know the best way to make a data-driven system. You know what? I should probably look that up. Godot data-driven. Godot data editor. That's something I didn't know existed. Oh, because it doesn't. Cool. So the data editor is a really old plugin. All right, so it doesn't look like there's anything obvious with the keyword data-driven. So I guess we're going to work without it for now. Maybe someone will tell me how. It'd be things like using files rather than in-game assets. But for now, we should be able to use the in-game assets. We'll just make them invisible, and we'll work with that. It'll be fine. So if we were to go ahead and add little 2-dimensional nodes for this. So we'll just call these node. We don't have to have them. We can just make them. Yeah, we don't need them to be node 2Ds or anything like that. We'll just make them nodes, generics. And basically, I think I'm going to arrange this in a particular hierarchy. So we're going to go ahead and say that this would be the system. We'll call it a star system because system is somewhat vague when you're programming. It could mean almost anything. It could mean the programming environment that you're on, or the target programming environment, or the target release environment, or any number of other things. So we're gonna make it clear. We'll call this a planet. We should probably call it a colony because it's not just a planet. And it's bitter cold out, and the people who own the building I rent have decided that the heating should be turned way down. So they're paying for all of the heat and power anyway. I don't know why they think that turning the heat down is going to save them money, since all we're going to do is turn on heaters. So obviously their hope is that we will freeze to death and die and still keep paying them somehow, but that doesn't seem likely. So if you hear a loud heater noise in the background, that's because landlords are the worst people on earth, and I hope they all die. So the way we do a colony is when you land on a colony world, you will have a couple of options as to how you want to proceed, and those are called paths. For example, if you land on a desert world, you might have a path option where you could do industrial stuff, or a path option where you could focus mostly on the ecosystem, growing foods and stuff like that. And those two choices would be at odds with each other. And once you make that choice, that's a path. And basically, every time you take a path, your maximum cap for population increases. So that's how you work your way up. But every time you take a path, you unlock 2 slots for facilities. So every path will contain 2 constructed facilities. But these are different from the facilities that are available to construct. We're going to go ahead and mock it up first, but we're going to go ahead and try and make it as clear as possible by calling it a built facility or a facility slot. And then, the path is also similarly kind of a generic setup. And the idea here is that we will be able to figure out how to draw this using a data setup. So presumably what we'll do is we will create maybe, JSON style saving and loading. And that way we won't have to worry about these things aren't going to be baked into the system. These things are randomly generated, and then the player builds them heuristically, and we need a way to represent that as the player moves around. And keeping all of that stuff in live scene memory is not generally the preferred approach. It's not too bad if it's just data, right? But once it starts becoming things like textures, that's when it starts to get a little overwhelming. You don't want to always have every planet's texture loaded into RAM. It's just going to make your game way heavier than it needs to be. But now that we've got the star system set up, we're going to actually name the star system template. What we're going to want to do is make a UI that pulls from this. And this is where I'm a little bit uncertain as to how to make it work. We're going to go ahead and try a couple of things and see what happens. So basically, we're going to need a list. We got an item list here. This might be, it's a list of selectable items, and it's not really what we want. I think all we really want is vertical and horizontal dividers. Let's go ahead and take a look. There's got to be vertical and horizontal dividers here somewhere. Is this them? Vertical split container? Vertical box? What's the difference between a vertical box and a vertical split? So here's a vertical split container. It's beautiful, as you can see. So beautiful. And we're going to go ahead and add some stuff into it to see what it actually is made of. So we're going to just select some color rects and see what happens when we duplicate them. We should be able to change the color of these color rects. For some reason, they're showing up as blue even though they're clearly selected. Oh, they're blue because they are a child of that control box, which is currently set to blue. So we're going to unblue this. There we go. So you can see the only color rect we can see is the last one. The vertical split container doesn't appear to actually be splitting anything. I don't think this is what I think it is. I think this is... okay. So what we see here is... I don't know what this is. Maybe it's supposed to specifically handle two objects? Well, we'll try the other one. Well, this doesn't look any better. All right, so clearly I do not know what's going on. Godot, vertical, or VBox container. Oh, I did this in the wrong browser. Yuck. Yuck, full of Microsoft and Google shit. There we are. VBox container. Description, vertical box container. Great, thanks. Box container. Arranges child controls vertically or horizontally and rearranges the control automatically when the minimum size changes. So it's described as doing exactly what I wanted to do. It doesn't appear to actually be doing any of that, though. And there are a couple of reasons that might be. Presumably it's not just completely broken, but it might be something like there's a minimum size value I have to set to above 0 for some reason. I don't really know. We could change this to center and see what... No, it didn't really do jack shit. So see how it says min size here, but that's the min size for the container, not for these boxes. So if we were to come down here into this and increase the min size... Okay, so for some reason that works. So this is a vertical splitter, but the vertical splitter doesn't have an optimizer built into it. It's not one of those things... Wow, that's completely wrong. Congratulations. You're terrible. There we go. Okay, so there are some glitches here. As I was saying, most of these come with their own scale setter. So basically, it'll try and fit them into the scale properly without needing to have a specific size. Oh, I said clip content and it didn't work at all. So most of these would struggle just cram those into the same amount of space instead of requiring you to set a min size. See, here's a whole bunch of size flags, right? But these are clearly not... These are generic size flags that have nothing to do with anything, see? So they're not VBox size flags. They're not going to change how the VBox works. And apparently the way the VBox works is it just blindly stacks stuff on top of other stuff based on its min size. That's so strange. Why would it be the min size? Huh. This is super primitive. Well, at least I know what it is now. So basically what we want to do is we want to create a number of plugins for this VBox container that will be able to describe the setting that we're doing. Brilliant. So I can't click on the objects in there because they are being defined by the VBox container, but I can't click on the VBox container because obviously I'm clicking on the objects inside. Brilliant. All right, so we're going to go ahead and call this VBox container a system UI, or a star system UI. Call it star system? Yeah. And basically what we're going to want to do is create a setup where we can sort of fake some of the basics of what we're aiming for. It's not really going to be amazing. It's not supposed to be. I think I need that texture. Sprite. If we can drop in a half moon sprite, we should. Don't know if we can. We'll go ahead and come over here. This is just a file that's in the directory that we're using. And we will simply create something, basically a half moon sprite. Of course, a half sun sprite rather. Of course, the problem with this is it's much too tall. It's not really built for that. Who cares, right? We're just doing this as a quick little, no, don't change anything. Quick little visual, right? Just there we are. Perfect, right? And we'll go ahead and export that, if I can get it to export. There we are. We'll call this sun stand-in. Settings sun stand-in. Yes, that's correct. So then we can come back over into Godot and use that settings sun stand-in here in the sprite section. There we are. We'll just park that. I can't click on it. Wow, this is really awkward. It is not terribly well done. That's okay for now. We'll deal with that as it comes. So the idea here is that the topmost layer of our basic colony visual will be the setting sun. Now there's a lot of reasons to do that. One of them is it tells you what kind of system you're in, and another is that it backlights the rest of the colony, which can simplify our art assets dramatically. But the idea is that the actual size of this shouldn't be tightly linked to the visual that we're presenting. So this should have like a min size of 80, but these two need to be Why did that? That's fucking weird. There it is. So we just change this to 1. This to 1. There we go. And this we can make it like 20. And then the sprite we'll put inside here, and that way it'll be bound to that, more or less. And so basically we can have like an overlay, which will help to layer ourselves a little bit. So basically each of the layers is defined as smaller than it really is so that they overlap. It's pretty basic. So to do that, we're going to need to have some layers that are not very big. We're going to go with maybe 60. And this will be called system visual. That's not how you spell visual. And this will be called, that's actually the system slot, isn't it? This is the system visual. And this is the sun. And this is going to be one of, we have a lot of things going on here because we've got a colony world, but that's not where this is. This is where the path would be. So we'll go ahead and set that up as a path slot. And we'll delete this one. And inside the path slot, we're going to have several path visuals. So this is what it looks like if it's exactly the right size. What we actually want is to push it up and down. There we are. Something like this. And we're going to go ahead and make that not black, because the whole point is that it's not black. This will be a path visual. We actually want this path slot to be a horizontal divider, but we don't want it to be automatic, because the automatic system in this setup is terrible. So what we're going to do is we're going to just divide it manually, which we'll do by having a path visual that takes up the center. And then we're going to have a facility A visual, and that's going to be on the left side. So to do that, all we need to do is change the anchoring so that it's left, left. Ooh. And we'll go ahead and bring that down a touch. And we'll make it like this scale. We'll color that slightly different just so we know it's not the same. And then we'll have a facility B visual. There we go. Which is the same thing, but on the right. There we go. And the idea here is that we would have 5 of these. So what our visual would be in terms of just the way that it looks, it would look like this. This is obviously just a quick little prototype, not the actual visual you'd be using, but this is how it would look on the screen. And we can adjust the exact scale pretty easily to allow us to sort of get the final result we want. Now you might be noticing that some of these buildings get cut off, and that's actually on purpose. This won't be like opaque in the long run. So the idea here is that we'll have the SAR system up here will have a text box. So let's go ahead and put that in. That would actually be the system slot here, just a bigger system slot. So let's just expand this to 120. Sorry. Oh, okay, so I can change the size and the min size separately? I'm not sure if that's true. There's something a little bit weird about that. I sort of have a feeling like that's not true. We'll find out eventually, I suppose. So we're going to just drop this down into here, and we're going to want to define some text elements. So let's go ahead and add some. We'll just set up this margin anchor 1. And we'll center the text. And we'll call this the name of the colony. Colony World. Desert. Deserty Colony World. And then we're going to want to just set that up to have a better size, because that is not the right size. That is very tiny. Got a tab size. Where's the text size? Why do they have tab sized but not text size? That's kind of strange. I'm beginning to see how this works. I don't know how this works. So I guess we'll look it up. Godot text size. People are telling me I need a custom font. That's fucking stupid. Why wouldn't your default font be able to do this shit? The number one thing your default font should be able to do is fucking show up on screen. How stupid is this? This is incredibly stupid. Well, there are some people who are using BB code, so let's go ahead and just see if I can get that to work. Well, that didn't work at all. Calcidius says, I'm about to not ever try this engine. So I tried it a couple of years ago and it was pretty rough. And I came back to it because I figured, why not, right? But there are so many basic problems with it. People were discussing last year at this time how to do font scaling in Godot. Godot is like 10 years old at this point. Why? Here is some official advice to not use Godot, which seems a little bit iffy. Wow, everybody says that it has to be a custom font to change the size. All right, so how do I change the font? Mary Kistner says, why did you start using Godot? Well, the only reason I used Godot is because I wanted to try everything. I don't want to use Unity anymore. It's on the way down, and I don't particularly want to get stuck on a sinking ship. My projects take tremendous amounts of time to finish because I'm just a hobbyist. So I thought I would jump ship to something that's on the way up. Clearly, one of those options is to do it in Unreal, and I might have to. It doesn't look like Godot's quite ready yet. But Epic is a really sleazy, trashy company, so I was hoping I could avoid them entirely. And I could if Godot was just a little bit more usable. It's just shocking to me the problems that you run into when you don't dog food your game engine. And right now it looks like Unreal is the only game engine where the owners actually develop games in their game engine. Because that's the only way to know that you're going to have trouble like this. Like, Like, obviously you should have a text size function. Every program since the beginning of time has had a text size function. I had a text size function on my fucking Apple II. And the only reason they haven't fixed that yet is because they've never tried to develop a game themselves. Now, obviously, even if they do develop the games themselves, it can be quite dangerous because you get into habits. Like in Unreal, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work just because the devs are so used to developing in Unreal that they don't consider it to be a problem. They're not newbies. They're old bees. So things like Unreal's complete lack of local variables on blueprints means that their blueprints always end up as the most hilariously terrible node spaghetti maps that I've ever seen. And you can clean those up real quick if you do a couple of very, very basic UI techniques that they refuse to do because it's good enough. And I was like, well, I wish that you'd bring some newbies on board so they could tell you how to do shit. So I just set the size of this dynamic font to 154 and it did nothing. But that might be because I have to type something. No, okay. So maybe it's not the mono font that I need to override, or maybe I need to specify. No. Normal font, maybe? Okay, that looks promising. By promising, I mean it looks terrible because it is black. Yeah, well, I like answering questions, but I don't like this era. I don't know, man. The past few years have not been good for me in game engines. I kind of am in the middle of a dry spot where I basically hate every game engine, and I haven't felt like that in a long, long time. There's always been a game engine where I could be like, yeah, this is my favorite, and now it's like, all these game engines just suck. We should go back to Flash. Mary Kistner says that they booted up Godot and then gave up quite quickly. Yeah, I did that too, but that was a couple of years ago, and now I'm really investigating it. But it looks like I would have to have my own fucking custom fonts. This early on? Seriously? You want me to start my noodling with custom fonts? Like going and tracking them down somewhere? I'm not going to be downloading fonts just so that you... So what's the font that I can... So they are recommending using a dynamic font, but nobody's mentioning the fact that the dynamic font is empty. Is everybody just tracking down the correct spot for the default font? Godot font. Yes, tell me where to find your default font. Calcidia says that they love my Unity videos, and even if it has issues, it's still usable. Yeah, the problem is that it's getting less usable every year, and that's usually a sign that it's about to implode. Long history with things like Torque have shown me that you generally want to get off the ride as soon as possible when you realize that the tracks are out. It's very easy to get stuck using something like Unity for years longer than you intended. And it's like, oh, well, if I start a project now, Unity's not terrible right now. It's just kind of getting terrible. But I'm going to be stuck in Unity with that project for the next 2 years. And by that time, it will be actively terrible. And the only way around it is to like use an outdated version of Unity. And then you can't use any assets from the asset store. And you can't look up how to do things because it's all for a different version. It's just more trouble than it's worth. But on the other hand, so is this. Just checking to see whether or not it would run at runtime. So people are specifying fonts. Let's see whether or not this works. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work because I don't actually have the font data here. They downloaded it from somewhere. Why is there a default font that we can't use? That doesn't make any sense. Calcidia says that Unity will probably start leaning further into commercial sector use. Yeah, that's not the only problem with Unity, though. Obviously, their gambling addiction is an issue, but they are owned by a really tremendously sleazy group, and that is something that's going to cause them no end of problems, especially since they just went public. And so now they are not just owned by that tremendously seedy group, they now are owned by that group and a whole bunch of random VCs who are also tremendously seedy. They have no chance. They're just going to implode. The only question is how fast. So eventually they're going to be one of those engines that's known for the one thing they do, and it's probably going to be slot machine related. Hold on, I got to adjust the heating in here. Alright, so I gotta download a TrueType font. I don't really care. I'm happy with an open source font. I just want to get rid of this shit. The problem is, it's impossible. I don't do this, so I don't really know things like licensing and shit. License. Apache license version 2.0. That's good. Hold on, I'm going to go ahead and arrange some files here. Why is it zipped? I mean, I guess. Oh, it's actually like 85 different fonts, that's why. The TrueType fonts come with a bunch of variants. Because apparently those aren't algorithmic, those are hard-coded. So we'll drop these in here. And the Apache 2 font, Apache License 2, I don't believe it's constrictive. Not that it'll matter, because I probably won't keep it for very long. Yeah, the only issue I have is I'm not sure whether or not that's like one of those things where I have to be aggressive about it, because there are some of those are like, well, yes, if you do that, then if you download this font, then you're going to need, or if you use this license, then your whole project has to be this thing, and I don't really want that, but it's fine. I'll just take it out if that's the case. For development, it's fine. And Calcidia says, so there's no hope? Nope, I don't think so. Not for Unity. Unreal is in a more interesting state just because they're billionaires that actually develop games. I call them games. But they are able to actually do stuff. They've got loads and loads of money to throw around, and they actually have goals in mind. So I don't think Unreal will ever be pleasant to use, but I also don't think it's on its way down. I think it's near a plateau, but I don't think it's on its way down. In Godot, I got no idea. These tiny little programs like this, sometimes they are a lot more fragile than you might expect, and I've seen them just vanish overnight in the past. I don't think that's going to happen here, but it's one of those things where you have to be a little bit careful. Why aren't you showing up? That's a proper font. Oh, now it's showing up. Okay. Okay, so that's working now. Wow, that is not working. It is apparently anchored to the bottom rather than the top, but it's not properly done. There's something screwy going on here. Okay, never mind. That was just an error in its immediate work. That was strange. Go ahead and set that up as a 20 here. Let's replace that with the bold. That doesn't look any bolder. Don't know. Anyway, because it can't auto scale or anything like that, it's just a big pile of crap. But for now, we're gonna keep pushing forward in this game engine. We could try and switch it out for. Why can't I fucking resize this? Okay. Later on, what we can do is try and work out whether this would be better off in Unreal or something. It's not that big a deal. There's something wrong. What don't I understand? Why is this insisting that it must be that size? That's... What's going on here? I don't think that makes any difference. This doesn't seem very good. There's something screwy with the size. It's not letting me resize it. Does it think that this TrueType font has 200 pixels of headroom? Did I accidentally? I did. I told it there was 200 pixels of headroom, didn't I? I was trying to get it to work earlier. And the result is, there we are. So I was trying to get it to work, and in the process, I broke it. That's the nature of life. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and push it. We're only going to push it on the left, though. So basically, if we do it like this, oh wow, that's terrible too. There we are. So we can then duplicate this, move it down. Of course, it's going to duplicate with. Why would it duplicate with the BB code? Wow, their BB code implementation is really terrible. It's okay though. Anyway, this is not going to be custom fonts. This is going to be the normal font. And this is going to be the name of the world and the size of the font and that sort of, or the size of the colony and that sort of stuff. So Let's set that up. Looks like I screwed that up somehow. I'm not sure what I just did. Huh. This duplication is weird. It keeps copying over the BB code, even though the BB code is disabled and empty. Something like that, right? And then this whole system slot can be shrunk considerably. There we go. We would like these to have the same left anchor, so we'll change it. There we are. So you can sort of see where I'm going with this, but what I'd like to do is have these right aligned. Is that a theme thing or a BB code thing? Let's take a look here. Godot right aligned text. Geez. These people cannot be serious. These suggestions are bizarre. Well, they recommend BB code. Okay. Everything else wants to use BB code, so I guess we'll do this. That's pretty close to what they were recommending, right, Kissness? They were saying that it should be put inside of a box, like a vertical alignment box or something, which could then have a centered value set to the style, and then that would automatically propagate down to the text box or some nonsense like that, which was just patently and obviously incorrect. So we're going to go ahead and try and pull this left a little bit here. There we go. And to make sure that we know that it's a size 2 colony, what we're going to do is just hide some of these facilities. Now, just as far as this goes, the only issue now is that what we want to do is build. Okay, so for some reason it's taking the BB code, even though the BB code is disabled. Look, it's fucking disabled. Why are you being a jerk about it? Fine, we'll enable it. It looks like I've got a version of Godot where the BB code is dominant to the extent where why do they have any other option if it's always going to be just forcing itself to the front. Okay. So basically what we want to do is be able to build this interface from the data that we've got, because this star system template needs to have the data that is needed in order to get that stuff. I'm not really sure the best way to do this, but we're going to go ahead and give it some shots here. We're going to go ahead and call this star system. And it's basically just going to be a cluster of variables. So export Do I type in like string? I think I'm trying to remember how it is. Let's just go ahead and see if that works. No, it's... I can't remember. Godot export variable. Oh, there's no colon. No, didn't like that either. Oh, it's I can't use name because name already exists. Star name. There we are. All right, so then we can have export string var star type. We're just kind of playing fast and loose here. We're going to want to export. So here's the question. When we have a data setup like this, does it load all of these variables into RAM? Or does it only load the variables into RAM as references that later get pulled in fully? Now the difference between that is, do I have to make this a the name of a sprite so that I don't load the sprite into memory before I'm ready? Or can it just be the sprite and then it will only load the sprite when it's needed? I don't really know, so I guess we're going to just try it this way. It's faster. And okay, it seemed like it was spitting out errors. Yeah, I think it did spit out some errors. The export hint isn't a resource type. Sprite isn't a resource. What are these things then? If it's not a resource, it's an image maybe? You think it's an image? Texture? I think it's a texture? Maybe it's a texture. So with that in mind, we should be able to drop in the setting sun into that texture box. We can name this, what I call it, alpha reticuli or something. So when we have it set up like this, what we would like it to do is autofill this stuff here with those values. So to do that, we're going to want to do it in the opposite direction. The UI is responsible for pulling the data. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But we're going to go ahead and start by adding a script to this system slot here, which we're going to call star system star UI, which is a very long name. Inherits color rect. No, I guess it doesn't. No, because this is going to be an issue later on, isn't it? We're going to call it star UI test. And that's a really long name, but that's because there's no namespaces, as far as I can tell. All right, so now that we've got this, we're going to want to have an export node. I guess it's just a plain old node. Var star system. You didn't like that? You can't export a node? A node isn't a resource type? Yeah, do I have to make it a node path? Is that the only way you'll accept it? I guess so. So in that case, what we're going to want to do is have a var node. And down here, we'll go ahead and say star node equals, what do they call it? Node 2D loading. I've forgotten how to grab it. Find node? Find node, there it is. And we're going to just use that star system. And that should do. But we're going to want to optimize it a little bit. So let's go ahead and have export node path var colony name text. And then we're going to want star name text. And can I make this a texture rec? Is that gonna let me? We're gonna find out. No, it didn't like that. There we are. So with those in mind, we should be able to load these values up. So we're just going to go ahead and do the others quick and easy here. So cn text equals find node colony name text. And then we can say text.text. It's a text box, right? So is there like a get text function or... I've forgotten. Anyway, I don't think I knew how to do this. Godot get text box in GD script. Well, it seems to just say that you should be able to say dot text, which isn't what I would expect. Let's try it. Oh, because I'm actually using a var. Interesting. It's fine. So we're going to go ahead and say that that's going to have the star node. The thing is, I don't know if this is going to work because this is not going to ever autofill. Star node.star name is it ever going to autofill? I don't think so. We're going to have to find out though. So we'll save that and we'll just see whether or not it works and then we'll come back to it. So in order for it to work, we're going to have to make sure that alpha reticuli is not being used. Theta reticuli 3, so it's not. So what we're going to want to do is set up these values properly. So the star system is going to be star system template, and the colony name setup is going to be rich text label 1. No, yeah, and the star name is rich text level 2, and the star sprite is going to be the sun. There. And we're going to hit play. Chaboom! No star name. So how do we get the star name? See, the star name is on this here. See? Oh, it's a lowercase s, so maybe that's the problem. Let's find out. Oh, it's a null instance. Star node is a null instance? Well, first off, it probably shouldn't be capitalized. None of this shit should be capitalized. I'm just naming things however they happen to pop up in my head, and it's not doing great. So for some reason, find node star system ended up causing us issues. It doesn't seem to be actually getting what we need. It seems to be saying that it's empty. So the star node isn't actually finding a star node. I don't think there are any arguments I need in find node that I didn't give it. Is there some kind of local variable problem where this thing doesn't work because it's going up too many levels into a 3D world or something? That shouldn't affect it, but let's go ahead and find out. We'll just drop this in here and see what it has to say for itself when it's inside the same group. Okay. I don't really know what's going on, and I have to go think for a while. This is one of those situations where I have to decide whether or not this is even worth doing. It doesn't look like Godot is quite ready for prime time yet, but if I tried to do this in Unreal, I'm not sure how good Unreal's UI setup is. Obviously, I'd switch over to using 3D assets entirely, but Unreal, I'm not familiar with their UI stuff. Maybe that's what I'll do next week or Saturday. Either way, I'm going to stop now because I'm getting a little hungry. So I'll see you folks later. Thank you very much.